Ah, yes. Marvel vs. Capcom 2. One of the greatest games of all time. Not much to this game than choosing a team of three and using a variety of moves to defeat your opponent. What else can be said about this game? If we take a closer look, there's much to be said. The Marvel vs. Capcom series is intrinsically linked to my personal gaming experiences. I even played Marvel vs. Street Fighter, one of the earlier installments in the series. Yet, I crossed paths with this game only once. The reason for this is because I grew up playing only Nintendo consoles. I didn't experience other brands of gaming consoles until I was in college. Now, I'm assuming that many of you out there know about the Marvel vs. Capcom series and where its roots formed. However, I'm also aware that there's an equal portion of you that don't know the difference between Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and Fred Durst. This is Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and this is the heavy metal star, Fred Durst. Now, a brief history of this video game series. Enter the 1990s. Revolutionary advancements had led to technological improvements in home computers. The internet was just starting to take off. It was the Wild West, a new frontier in technology. You see, I was born after the first major improvements in home computers. When I was young, my family had a Windows 98 computer. It was nothing like today's desktop computers. It didn't look like this. It looked more like this. Not that impressive. The reason why I bring this up is because the advancements and limitations of video game hardware that led to the console wars of the 1990s. The Sega Genesis had 16 bits. The Super Nintendo had 32 bits. Street Fighter II was on both consoles. The roots of Marvel vs. Capcom series starts with Street Fighter, more specifically Street Fighter II. Street Fighter Alpha 2 was available for the Super Nintendo, PS1, and Saturn. This is where we see a divergence in Capcom fighting games on Nintendo consoles. Marvel vs. Street Fighter was the installment that pushed the boundaries of modern arcade hardware. When it came time for a console port, members of Capcom's programming staff said it couldn't be done. Yet they eventually built a solution. The Sega Saturn had a separate 4 megabyte RAM cartridge that allowed for a perfect 1-to-1 ratio for Marvel vs. Street Fighter. Sound familiar? The N64 did the same thing with their expansion pack that allowed vector lighting for the game Majora's Mask. So why are there no 2D Capcom fighting games on the N64? The answer that has been presented since the 90s was that the N64 had limited hardware. The N64 wasn't advanced enough for 2D games, even though games like Yoshi Stories, Mickey Tetris, Rampage 1 and 2, the Mortal Kombat trilogy, Killer Instincts Gold, Clay Fighter 63 and a third, and even Mischief Makers were all 2D games that ran perfectly well on the N64. Both Killer Instincts Gold and Clay Fighter 63 and a third had 2D character models and 3D backgrounds, just like Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Even Resident Evil 2 could run on the N64. It should also be noted that the port of Resident Evil 2 on the PlayStation required 2 separate discs, while on the N64, the entire game could fit onto 1 cartridge. Experts say that the N64 wasn't advanced enough for 2D games. Alright, that makes sense. Oh wait, no it doesn't! Once again, I present the question, why are there no 2D fighting games on the N64? The real reason is much more complex. The N64 was late to market and Capcom executives were unimpressed with the hardware. The Saturn can not only easily port Capcom's arcade titles, Sega actually made the components and hardware for all of Capcom's arcade cabinets. By the time the N64 hit shelves in June 23, 1996 in Japan and September 26 in North America, Capcom made the executive decision to only support Sega and Sony. The Saturn was released early and quickly became the #1 console in Japan. After Sega stopped making game consoles, Capcom's partnership with Sony proved financially beneficial and successful for both companies for years to come. Capcom also stated that the N64 controller isn't designed to be used with fighting games. Let's let that sink in for a moment. First, with both the expansion pack and the 64DD, the N64 would have had the technical capabilities needed for Capcom 2D fighting games. So, it's feasible to make a Marvel vs. Capcom 2 demake for the N64 console. Currently, I don't have the resources to make a demake port of Marvel vs. Capcom 2 for the N64. However, I'll do the next best thing. I'm going to do a cursed playthrough of Marvel vs. Capcom 2. One of the characters I'll be using for this playthrough will be Thanos. Arguably, Thanos is one of the worst characters in the game. I'll also be playing Marvel vs. Capcom 2 as originally intended. That's right. I'll be using the N64 controller. Oh yes. If I'm going to suffer, I'm going to suffer in style. Without further delays, I present to you Marvel vs. Capcom 2 Special Edition 64.
Capcom presents
Ready?
Marvel vs. Capcom 2 New Age of Heroes.
Well, am I playing a video game, or did I just walk into a casino?
I wanna take you for a ride. I wanna take you for a ride. I wanna take you for a ride.
K.O. You win. You win. K.O. You lose.
What was up with that? I was so close! I won't give up.
You win. Thanks for playing Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Your name will be inscribed in the pages of fighting history.
Well, that's it. I have nothing else to say about this great game. I will say this. We shouldn't hate Capcom and Nintendo for the mistakes that they've made. I hope that one day someone will make a real Marvel vs. Capcom 2 remake for the N64 console. Thank you for watching, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe.